What up? Good morning. Still morning. It is at St. Lauren 57. Sober, celibate, and saved. So I've been having a lot of people ask me why I say it, right? And not just like some of my leadership and Celebrate Recovery, but that is how it started. When I first started going to Celebrate Recovery, I noticed that everyone kind of had like this way of introducing to themselves. Like, whereas in secular recovery, like if you're at an NA meeting, you'll say, hi, my name's Lauren, I'm an addict, or whatever. Or in alcohol, in AA, people go, hey, my name's Lauren, I'm an alcoholic. But I'll say alcoholic addict because I like, except for the AA meeting I went to, where I met up with my brother, for like AA's, a little bit more stiff for me. But, anyway, so, someone asked me, so why do you like introduce yourself that way? And I was like, well, because those are like my main focus. Understanding exactly what sobriety is, and sobriety is, it's not just like, oh, okay, I had a drink last night, but I'm not drinking today, which obviously where I'm at, I'm sober, period. There's no alcohol, no nothing. So, but for conversation's sake, sobriety to me is completely abstaining from all mind-altering substances, because there's something called PAWS, post-acute withdrawal syndrome. So even if, what I'm saying, like maybe you drink a couple times a week, whatever, but I mean, people who a day after day basis use weed or alcohol, and harder drugs, there's going to be some like symptoms because, you've been putting this mind-altering substance in your body, and it goes straight to the brain. It affects your brain chemistry because your dopamine and your serotonin and all this cortisol, all these things are now rearranged in how the levels start going up and down and all this other sciencey crap, right? So it really means something when you abstain from mind-altering substances that can change your brain chemistry for a long time. It makes a difference. Like, this is why, like, they talk about post-acute withdrawal syndrome, because it can help, especially like your substance use disorder counselor, and yourself, if you know what I'm saying, if you're trying to look into like what exactly substance use disorder is, and if you're trying to understand like why it is considered a disease. And it's because it changes your brain chemistry, you know what I'm saying? Just like adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, your mind, from having these experiences, from the moment you're born, and if you watch, anyways, you know what I'm saying? It does affect your brain chemistry, you know what I'm saying? Because your mind is developing its experience based off of like life's events, and even from an age where you can't vocalize feelings, you know what I'm saying? Just even in infancy. So it affects your brain chemistry, which is why some people are more predisposed to having addictive personalities. Like, I most definitely have a very addictive personality. I hear a song I like, I'm going to play it all the time. I see a movie I like, I'm going to play it all the time. Like, I also like consistency. Consistency feels good to me. Structure feels good to me. Repetition feels good to me, which is why it's so easy for me to get addicted to something, because I like having something repetitive. I like something being consistent, and if it makes me feel good, even if it's like food, you know what I mean? Like, literally, it's how happy I get, and how, like, I'm sure like my dopamine levels go up in my brain when I smell like or if I hear I'm going to eat a certain type of food, or I get excited, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's because I use food as like a comfort for so long. Like, it makes me feel good. And also, that's why they talk about sugar being like one of the number one most addictive substances or things, because it goes straight to the brain, which is why when you drink alcohol deteriorates the, how would you say that? It deteriorates, basically, there's like a covering over your neurotransmitters, right? And it starts to deplete that, and it starts to damage the brain, right? Because those are what allow your like neurons to go through the body and send different messages for different things, right? So it affects that coding, that's the word I'm looking for, affects that coding, right? And these are things, actually, I learned that in a parenting class I had to take because of the DUI. I actually learned about how, it's scientifically proven that there are things you can do to rehabilitate your neurotransmitters, that you can, rehabilitate and heal the damage to the brain and the coding over that, right? Over that frequency, whatever the hell it is. And so that's why for me it's important, because I am just learning all these things about myself. Like I said, sobriety is not new to me, right? But typically, when you don't know about addiction, you don't know how it affects your mind, you don't know how it affects your body, you don't understand that it's a disease. Because I never understood that. I never wanted to say it was a disease, because I felt like shit. And not because I, don't want to be labeled as something. I was like, but I picked this thing up. But, you know what I'm saying? Like, I am it's predisposed for me, right? And yes, essentially, you go out there, you try something, but it does something to your brain, you know what I'm saying? And it is a disease because it does affect your brain chemistry and the dependency on it, blah, 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 blah. But so when I get to celibacy is super important to me, like, because as I was talking about yesterday, like, I realized, being present as a parent means a million different things, right? And even in sobriety, like in working and doing all of the things, I still had troubles. Like, I still, was always hoping to find love, always hoping to find a relationship that would stick. And not just with anybody, but, obviously you're in that honeymoon phase and blah, blah. But celibacy is super important because I've literally, like, it's not just, drugs that were an addiction. It's not just, the fact that, like, if I'm feeling some type of way, I would go drink or smoke. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, every time I'm stressed, then I pick up a cigarette. It's that action of, like, having an emotion, and instead of dealing with that emotion in a healthy way and processing the emotion, I'm hoping to ingest something. You know what I'm saying? No matter what mode of transmission, I'm trying to ingest something to not feel the feeling, to ignore the feeling. And it basically is just something to alter my brain to make me feel like it's better. But really, it just numbs it. It just suppresses it, is all it does. But also because, just not having a healthy self-image, not knowing how to really respect myself and make sure that I'm giving things time and giving me time. And then also, like I was saying with my son, and not really, having been able to have this conversation, but just trying to, as a mother, do my best to understand, like, what actions have I done that would make him feel this way? Like what exactly is it? And then I realized, there's lots of times where we had great times, but then obviously every time I enter a relationship, it's not like it was bad right away, and it wasn't bad the whole time. But being the fact that, like, I pick people who are emotionally unavailable, and then I'm so distraught because I just want to be loved. I just want someone to help me, pick up the slack, or someone to be my equal, you know what I'm saying? Someone to care about our future and have goals and help me build and help us take care of our family, you know what I'm saying? And A, B, C, and D. And so I realized, like, I have to be celibate because, I don't ever want my children to think that, it's more important for me to be in a relationship, it's more important for me to have the attention of a man than it is to be a mother to them and to have time with them. Because I realized that's something I experienced as a child and as a young adult, is that I just felt like it wasn't important to be in, it wasn't important to have that kind of relationship, and I did, as a young child, feel like other things were chosen over, people being a parent to me, you know what I'm saying? And so I have to be celibate because it's more important for me to get my feet on the ground. It's more important for me to build a life, and to not, hope that somebody will help me build that, or someone will want to be a part of it and treat me well. you know, as much as I want my kids to be able to see that, what's most important for them to see me well. It's most important for them to see me, you know, be strong and be present and to be consistent, and for them to always have a home to go to, and for them to always have a mom to come to. And that is where I went wrong, and that's where I made my mistakes. Is you know, I was still selfish because I was still, like, I didn't know all these things about myself. Like, I never thought about it. I never looked at it like, oh man, like, I'm fucking repeating history. Like, and I, you know, and I just, you know, I definitely did learn from 2 relationships prior that, you know, but then, I mean, I still wanted love. I was still hoping that, you know, and it's not, you know, and sometimes those things work out for people and sometimes they don't, you know. And actually, what is, now that I'm thinking to myself, right, like, as I'm talking about this, and when I was in esthetician school, I did a facial on a family member who I hadn't seen in years, like many years, right? But another family member's business was like right up the street, and so I was able to do a facial on her, and we got to bonding. And I didn't know that she went to massage therapy school. So not only did she have another job, I think, helping her brother's business, but she was doing massage therapy, so she was carrying 2 jobs and raising her 2 sons, and she didn't enter a relationship until after they had graduated. You know what I'm saying? And I remember her and I having this conversation about just about how important it is to, because she was talking about she doesn't even drink anymore, and I mean, she's got grandkids, and so she wants to be with the grandkids, and then her sons have moved out of California, so she is, I think she's hoping to hopefully move out of state and be able to be a grandma. And it's just like one of those things. It was just, you know, somebody who's already gone through the single mom thing, having to work, and just how much relationships can take away from you being a mother. Because, you know, what person, you know, what single dad or single mom, or what just people who are, like, I mean, it's not that our kids aren't enough. Like, my kids are more than enough, but that's not the point. You know what I'm saying? They didn't realize that they're more than enough, and I wasn't treating them like they were more than enough, because I have this broken, like, I was broken, still working on it, you know what I'm saying? But because of, like, what I yearned for and the lack of love throughout my life, and always just, like, you know, envying people, like, who are in the, you know what I'm saying? Like, I always found it so crazy when you see these couples, and, like, it's crazy how, like, I think only one of the people I've ever been with ever had a car. You know what I'm saying? Like, and, but also because, you know, being in a relationship is not about material things for me. And that was always a point I was trying to prove. But at the same time, you know, a broken person, not knowing the real definition of love, and, you know, like I said, trauma bonding essentially in all of my relationships. And, you know what I mean? I didn't know, you know, and I can't fix what I don't know, but now I understand. Now I understand that, my children probably felt the way that I did, and they, and even if, like, maybe one, or, you know, like, that is something that could come up. That is a feeling that they could, you know, justifiably feel. Of course, I think all children's feelings are justified because they have their own perspective, and we forget what it's like to be a child. And sometimes, you know, when we're so busy and we're so stressed out trying to provide, we forget to listen. We forget that we need to take a breath and take time to validate our children's feelings and to validate their presence. And, you know, and so there's definitely times, I mean, working graveyard, even not being in a relationship, but working graveyard, and, you know, there definitely were times where I didn't have something, like, I didn't have any self-care, you know. And it's true, everyone probably should have a therapist, you know, especially, like, when, you know, life is lifing, and because there's always a perspective, there's always something we're missing, you know. We have to take care of ourselves, because, you know, it's like when our cup gets over full, you know, then we start exploding, you know what I'm saying? It starts, like, almost like putting us into shock because we just can't, you know what I'm saying? I didn't delegate my emotional or social capacity, you know, in a healthy way. And so, you know, it's important for me to recognize these things. And these are things that, you know, I really understand now. I really understand now that I was like, even if I was doing things better, then, you know, even if I made a few steps, you know, and implemented a few things that would have made my childhood better, I still was falling short somewhere, you know, and that's my fault. But all I can do about it is do better. All I can do about it is really continue the work on myself and really embrace this chapter in my life and embrace this season and be consistent and, you know, to help me guide my children in their adult times, you know, like when they're entering relationships and when they're having children and when life is lifing for them, you know what I'm saying? My season will be able to, my experience will be able to help, you know, I'll be able to help advise them and just, you know, give them that comfort and give them good direction. Like here is, you know what I'm saying? Rather than a parent who had never done the work on themselves and didn't acknowledge where their wrongs were and didn't acknowledge like what they should have done better and isn't willing to change the course of time and the course of their relationship. And you know what I'm saying, to allow for our relationship to flourish, and not even just the age they're at now, but in their future. So that's why, like, you know, celibacy is super important, because I have, like, I'm strong enough to do this. You know what I'm saying? I brought children into this world. They are my main focus. And, you know, should God put before me, you know, a relationship, great. But if not, like I used to tell myself, like, it's not the time anymore. Like, I'm getting up there in age, and I just want life to, life's always gonna be lifing, but I can manage my life a lot better, and I can implement things to keep me grounded, and to keep me present, and to keep me, you know, functioning at a healthy level, so that I can, you know, overcome, you know, those trials and tribulations, you know. And just because life, just because you're sober, or just because you go to church, and just because you find faith, doesn't mean that life is like, you know what I'm saying? There is not a promise that your life is going to be perfect, but there is a promise that you can find joy. Even if your life doesn't ever meet the peak that you want to make, finding joy is something that is, I mean, there's so much more out of finding joy and feeling joy in this world than just wishing for things that, you know what I'm saying, may or may not happen. You know what I'm saying? You got to find, like, really what life is about, and you know, how you become wealthy in life, and not even just with monetary things, like with moments and people and experiences. And then obviously being saved as a part of it, because I mean, really, faith plays a huge part in my life right now, especially, like, you know, God met me down at the bottom, you know, when I didn't have people, you know, and you know, He came at me, you know, right at the bottom, you know, and just this complete and total, like, turmoil, you know, and just carried me through and walked with me, and yeah, so that's, I mean, making that choice to get baptized, and just to be able to see what my identity really is, not what this world wanted me to see, and not how people want me to feel, you know what I'm saying, or how people think I should feel about myself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing really well. I'm doing really great. And that's all state of mind. Like, I try my best every single day. I'm learning from all of my mistakes. I'm able to understand where, even, like, I'm just able to not be a victim. You know what I mean? I'm able to not be a victim. I'm able to have self-awareness so that I can be accountable for everything, so that I don't have to go through life with resentments and bitterness of other people. You know what I mean? And then I also have coping skills so that I don't have to go through life and, like shaming myself and making life harder on me. Like, I'm a really good person. I'm a very authentic person. Very kind, very loving, very affectionate. And, and I am a great mother. But I was still a human being. I was still a broken human being that I went through a lot as a child. And I never got to deal with it. I never went to therapy. I never, not only like, I was just so used to those relationships being what they were that I didn't care for them to change the course. Like, I completely accepted where they were, and that's still how I feel today. Like, I accept those people at where it's at, and, that's where it just has to stay to keep me safe, and just, not everyone has to be in my lane. Not everyone has to be in my path. We're supposed to love others, bless them and change me, and that's their life. Who am I to say how they should be living it? All I can do is embrace my life and love myself and love others, forgive myself, and just get the most out of life I possibly can, and be able to deliver that to other people who've also shared similar experiences, who are also, there's lots of parents who go through things like this, and there are lots of kids who go through things like this, and I can save lives, and other people have saved my life. Like, I'll be honest, in December when I took that walk to go, because I didn't have a phone, I had no way of checking on my daughter, on the way back, it took me like 6 hours, maybe longer, to walk home. My legs were just done. And I remember walking over the Watt overpass, and I was just like, well, like, I really just was like, maybe it doesn't really matter if I'm here or not, because it doesn't seem like it matters if I'm here or not, the lack of compassion, the lack of understanding, and I can understand, like, what I was going through is not something that people who, that's the thing about life and living your life and getting out of your comfort zone, is you gain experience. And there are lots of things that people think are taboo, and there's lots of things in life that people will not understand if they have never walked in those shoes, if they don't know anybody who has been in that predicament, or been in that phase of their life, or ever experienced that season of their life. You have to get out of your comfort zone to get experiences. You have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's how we learn, because otherwise our minds stay small, and we can hurt people if we aren't compassionate towards their walks and their life, because all of us have different struggles and different dreams, and etc. So, and obviously, like, I didn't even understand what I was going through, but I understand now. And I understand that I was not taking care of myself for a long time, and it really carrying the titles I carried, and just, you got to take care of yourself. You got to, and it's good to have a community, because, life is going to happen, and life gets hard, and, sometimes we can budget all we want, but there's going to be unexpected things that happen, and, there is help out there for all different types of things. There are lots of resources out there, and things like that, for when life starts lifing. But if we don't know about those resources, and if we don't know how to ask for help, then, that's when you really can lose your shit. And that's what happened to me. I really just lost it, because I was losing it all. I just lost it. And so, but yeah, that's why, I introduced myself as at St. Lauren 57, sober, celibate, and saved. Very, 3 very important things in my life to just, to make sure that I love myself correctly, to make sure I go through life respecting myself, and, because I matter. I matter. My life matters. My future's important. Being a better example, and being a better mother, and being a present mother, and just getting back to where I need to be for my kids. And getting where I need to be for myself. You know. So that me and my kids can experience joy together. So, at St. Lauren 57, be safe, be kind.